Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Jamsky Podcast Record Club, where each week one of us picks an album for the rest of us to listen to and review, and then we review it. And this week, we are discussing the epic, the monumental, the absolute titan of its genre, Taio Cruz's Rokstarr. August, why did you do this to me?
So, for those unaware, aka those of you who are under the age of 14,
Our primary demographic.
Taio Cruz is a British-born musician, talent extraordinaire, who, he's a bit of an enigmatic figure in that he represents this period of time, this time that we've spent a lot of Jams and Tea obsessed with. This shift of the 2000s into the 2010s is a way I really like to think of Taio as an artist. And it is worth establishing where he comes from. Taio basically began his career featured on the Tinchy Strider song Take Me Back, which peaked at number 3 on the UK singles charts. And way back when there was a website called MySpace, he created his own record label called Rokstarr to promote and disseminate his music. And from here, the ball started rolling. And then he meets up with UK producer Fraser T. Smith, who pairs him with American rapper Ludacris for his breakout and number 1 single, Break Your Heart. So let's talk about Break Your Heart. How do we all feel? Yeah.
So, I mean, this song is garbage. It's bad.
Oh my gosh, it's terrible.
It's awful.
And,
it's so annoying.
It is one of the 3 best songs on this album.
By a long shot.
You know what? Taio Cruz
Easily.
It's funny we're talking about Taio Cruz to me because he's always been like, even though this album has multiple hits on it, even at the time,
it has 3 hits. Like, this is something that can be said about Taio. He is definitely not a one-hit wonder, because to be a one-hit wonder, you need 1 hit. Taio has multiple hits.
And yet, who the fuck even cares or knows who Taio Cruz is now? He is C-list at best. He is like discount Jason Derulo. And I mean, with Jason Derulo, you're already getting a pretty fucking good bargain. The thing about
at least Taio wasn't in Cats.
The only reason Taio wasn't in Cats is because, again, he's so C-list. He wouldn't have even been asked to be in Cats. The thing is about Taio Cruz is that, like, and you can say this for a lot of artists around that era, they were all basically chasing the spotlight that was really led by Usher, I think, in the early 2000s.
Usher, Pitbull, this kind of dance poppy inflected R&B.
To a lesser extent, Chris Brown also was very big around the same time for the exact same reasons. And also, I think the ever-present shadow that looms over this whole album is the Black Eyed Peas. Like,
oh my gosh, yeah.
All these artists, I think, come back to Usher, and they all kind of like. It's so funny because I get to use the pun here that he ushered in this particular wave of, again, as you say, sort of chintzy R&B inflected pop music. I mean, it's so funny. Like no disrespect to Usher, who's great, but like you think about the main progenitors and the artists who profited the most off of this wave. I mean, one of them is Chris Brown. Another is R. Kelly. Actually, he came even before Usher, actually.
Yeah,
so,
he was.
In a lot of ways, all of this comes back to R. Kelly. Yeah. And in some respects, you could say
R. Kelly's another progenitor of this style. It really, emanates out from him and truly over onto you.
Truly, some might say his greatest crime. But yeah, so Taio Cruz is not any kind of revolutionary. He's not really doing anything new here, but he is moving off of the back of a particular wave that's coming in, and also riding the coattails of particular producers and a particular sound that was really, really big, really, really associated with 2009 and specific, like that year, 2009, 2010, a particular era where pop music was, I'm not going to say it was disposable because that's not unique to that era, but there was a particular kind of sleazy disposable pop music where like the R&B-esque influenced kind of like dance aesthetics that came to be a really big part of the 2000s had kind of curdled into this sort of like seedier, kind of more overtly sexual and kind of leering version of itself, like with certain artists who came to the fore, and it just became less, I guess, tasteful. And that's not necessarily inherently a bad thing, but it became more about this kind of like dirty, creepy sexuality.
And I want to speak on that actually, because I think that's also reflected within the literal kind of composition of this track with the Ludacris feature, because for one, his feature is terrible and his rapping is mediocre at best, and he really comes in here just to deliver this like shitty hook. But then you think about, why is Ludacris on here? But the reason is that Taio is a British artist, and I mean, you could be forgiven for thinking he was like one of these Floridian Pitbull types, but Ludacris is on here for the explicit reason that Americans need a name they can recognize. So they see, oh, Ludacris, I know that guy. I can listen to this song. Like, Ludacris serves here as a bridge to get American audiences to be familiar with Taio Cruz. And let's think about the line he delivers on here. So Ludacris on here has to not only name drop himself, but reaffirm that it is indeed Taio Cruz whom you are listening to. Now, this is a recurring theme throughout Taio's discography, this reaffirmation. You have to know who Taio Cruz is. Taio Cruz, it is all about Taio. He is the man, he is the myth, he is the used car salesman, he is the king of the world, and he wants to let you know. And now this kind of king of the world, like, look at me mentality is even further emphasized by something that happens later in his career, where he created a social media app called Kiwi so people could keep up with what he was doing. And I think that is the importance.
Really?
Taio,
yes,
Taio Cruz, founder of Kiwi Farms.
This is the secret importance of Break Your Heart. This song has nothing to do with breaking your heart. No, this song is about getting you to know, I am Taio Cruz. I am Taio Cruz. Look at me. I am Taio Cruz. That is this song's purpose.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's not like,
that's not revolutionary.
That's fairly standard. It's what you would kind of expect. What's interesting to think about is that this is Taio's second album off of the back of his 2008 debut Departure, which was entirely self-produced, kind of disco-inflected, fairly standard R&B album with singles that did really well on specific genre charts. And this was a deliberate attempt, a kind of pivot for him to really channel into the zeitgeist and hit certain marks with that.
Can we talk about the fact that this is just the progenitor to like all of those Kanye West and Weeknd songs that are all like, it's like Monster and all that shit, or like it's basically the core of that song where it's like, oh, I'm gonna love you, but also I'm like a bad guy. Except
what if a bad boy had a beautiful voice? Except he doesn't.
No,
that's the thing, is that like a song like this is supposed to establish like a dichotomy where it's just like, it's like, oh, it's one thing, but I'm another. But like the funny thing about Break Your Heart is that it is purely single-minded. It's just like, I am going to break your heart. And that's it. That is the only sentiment on this entire song. Like, there's nothing else here. It's just him saying that over and over again. That's it.
And that, I think, is where August's interpretation comes into view, where it's like, with that being the only obvious lyrical message, you realize the true message is not even that at all. It is just simply to put these names in your head through subliminal messaging, essentially. It's a remarkable advertising spin from Taio. It's really something.
They call him Heartbreaker. That's the funniest line to me. It's just like the song, I'm gonna break your heart. They call me Heartbreaker.
Okay, Ryan Adams. Look, so moving on.
Right. God, there are too many sex offenders. Stop.
Moving on. So yeah, the kind of like vague gesture towards a kind of like leery sexuality that's hinted at, I guess, on this song. Not even really, it's so vague and just kind of like limp-dicked. That does become a little bit more explicit on third single, Dirty Picture, for which Taio Cruz recruits Kesha. Now, this is a really interesting dovetail because I think, and it's been well remarked on by this point, but the story of Kesha is fascinating as an insight into the music industry and how it molds and shapes certain artists and how it restricts certain artists' vision. By this point, it is fairly well known that Kesha's early career under the tutelage of Dr. Luke, who does produce a song on this record, but not this one, and we'll get to that. Under his tutelage, she was essentially shaped into this image, this kind of bimbo sleazebag kind of image of this, woman who is all about hedonistic vices and nothing else, essentially, this very two-dimensional thing. And of course, I'm not trying to take away from Kesha's own desire to ride that wave and kind of be a part of that, but there was certainly an extent to which she was molded into that and kind of restricted within that frame to a point where she wanted to escape from that. And also, during a period in which she was being assaulted and brutalized essentially by this figure. And it's interesting to think about all of these early songs that she's on. I mean, this to me, this is not a Taio Cruz, this is a Kesha song, because this absolutely does not track with anything that we've established Taio to be up to this point. Like this kind of juvenile, pathetically horny individual, like it doesn't jibe well at all with any of the ways in which Taio's kind of established himself.
Like the callous heartbreaker image does not work on this track, because that's simply not what it feels like. This track, like you make the point of, reads more like some friggin' like incel 17-year-old fucking weirdo. Just
what's funny about it?
Dirty picture.
What's funny about it, August, is that the more I think about it, the more I think that Break Your Heart is the outlier, not this. Because if you look at all the other songs on the album, they're all about like being heartbroken and being in love and like, wanting to, take me back. I'll never love again. Only you. Falling in love. Keep going.
It's very Michael Bolton-esque, frankly.
God. And so it's so funny how frazzled and disconnected and disorganized Taio's image is when you kind of take in all of this music and try to reconcile songs with each other, which is why I think that this is so much more a Kesha song in personality and spirit, at least this era of Kesha, than a Taio Cruz song, because this particular leery kind of slightly revolting sexuality is kind of not really something that he is able to slide into very well. And let's also talk about how influenced this is. I think this is as good a point as any to bring up the Black Eyed Peas as well. Going through a similar state around this time as well. This is around the time I think that they dropped The End, or maybe slightly before that. Actually, I have to check that out. But they were in a particular period as well where they had embraced this sleazy synth disco variant of their already incredibly irreverent music. And you were getting all of these sorts of like vaguely euphemistic sexualized songs that were so funny because they were like directly, like they were trying to be like coy or allude to sexuality in a way that is suggestive without being explicit, so that they could be, radio friendly, but they were doing it in a way that's so like on the nose and just kind of like this was a point where that whole shtick, which has always been, I think, a foundational part of like R&B and R&B influenced pop, is the kind of like sexual suggestiveness of it. You're getting it now into an era where it's so kind of commodified and plastic that it's like the suggestiveness is like so it's just completely any nuance or any kind of subtlety or any kind of sense of actual sort of intimacy or like even sensuality at all is completely stripped out of it.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's just like
That's
this,
definitely true.
it's
that
this
it just doesn't
cheap,
feel
trashy, just like, you know, and all of this kind of built up and built up and built up and climaxed with Robin Thicke's Blurred Lines in 2013.
Yeah.
But I mean, that was by far like that was by no means a new phenomenon with that song. That was just kind of a saturation point moment. And this is, I think, another one of those countless singles leading up to that kind of explosion or ultimate reaction against it that you can kind of point to and say, like, this is you know, essentially representative of the decline of pop. As kind of ridiculous as that sounds, like the decline of so many aesthetics in pop music can be traced to a lot of what Taio was doing here with Fraser T. Smith and with his feature collaborators as well. And I mean, it doesn't get much trashier and just like shamelessly fucking vulgar. And I don't say that in a like a, I don't want to sound prudish because I don't have a problem with these kinds of songs, with songs that are explicitly sexual or anything like that, whatever. But just this idea that there is anything at all remotely sensual or even sexual about this, it's not even remotely any of those things. It is just uncomfortable. It gives off those weird sex pest vibes. It's like, you know, pressuring someone, low key pressuring someone into sending you nudes, something, you know, which at the time, that whole idea of like nudes, which that wasn't even a term then, because hence the name of the song, like that was such a novel concept that it hadn't kind of become like a major part of the way that relationships played out like it is now. And so in retrospect, this idea of essentially pleading with someone to send you a nude, which might have seemed like funny and novel and cutesy at the time, now seems incredibly creepy.
Yeah. And that could be like some of the kind of sexual bravado that Taio is maybe trying to convey, where he's like, oh, I'm gonna be the one to ask to send me a dirty picture. Yeah, look at me.
I love the way he just like the absolutely fucking just disgusting way that he kind of like tries to establish the logic of this request through his first verse, where he's like, I could dream of ways to see you.
The first verse is so funny because it's like so tonal, like the instrumental is so tonally disparate from the rest of the song. It's like this soft kind of twinkly thing, and then it just gives way into this like hard, like clubby disco beat.
Because like the idea is like he's, you know, it starts off in this romantic place where he's like, I could dream of you, I fantasize about you. Tell the world of what I believe. It's so hard for me to see you when you're not here. And then it's like, so fucking send me your tits, bitch. And it's a kind of dynamic the song plays with. And that's part of its trashiness, right? Is that it sets up it relies on a particular trope. And then it relies on essentially subverting that trope. But it does it in the most kind of like clunk-headed way imaginable that ends up like feeling like it's kind of just a joke song more than, and maybe to some extent it is, but like the cheapness of it is so like unrewarding. And the joke is so like kind of just callously dumb that it's not even like amusing. It's just weird and discomforting. And also, like, again, because Kesha has made her name on and will continue to make her name on a bunch of songs like this, it's a shtick that we can see coming, that we know already. I mean, from the name of the song for starters, but also just because we know what the deal is and we know what it's going to be. So the subversion doesn't work. Because you can see through the hollowness of that first verse before you even get to the chorus and the music gets all, you know, distorted and whatever and detuned.
Yeah, it's
just a failure of a proposition in so many different ways.
I've never heard this song until I had to listen to
Really?
this. The only
Wow.
singles I was familiar with are I was familiar with Dynamite, Break Your Heart, and Higher. Those are the only songs that I heard before. Um, and I think the funniest part of this song is something we haven't talked about yet, and that's just the way it sounds.
Oh
It
god.
is the most hysterically minimal, like dance electro club beat thing. Like it sounds like it was made by a 4-year-old playing with a doll that they like found. And it starts off, it is structured like a joke
Click, click,
in that
snap.
first verse where she's singing about it's like this false start. And then as soon as Kesha comes in, it just has this insanely skeletal, minimal plink plonk beep, 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 ass beat, and it just sounds so awful. Every song on this album sounds like a variation of this. I mean, like, by contrast, Dynamite and Break Your Heart sound like an explosion of sonic color compared to the 75% of the album that is not those two singles. And this is like the most one. It is a song that is as musically dimensionless as its lyrics are dimensionless.
I don't even think that's necessarily bad.
No.
It's just like,
and yeah, that should be the point here, that like nothing Taio is doing is inherently terrible or inherently subversive to the norm. It's just the particular way it's gone about somehow
he can't,
makes everything land flat.
as a singer and also as a personality, he can't sell this. This is the problem.
That's exactly the problem with Taio Cruz, is that you don't buy it. I mean, musical cachet, especially in the pop world, is all about personality, authenticity, and realness. That is what pop music in an image sense is about, because people want like a figure they can connect to or understand or establish. And Taio Cruz just doesn't have that. He's got a goofy name and that's it. And some of this is emphasized by his third album being called TY.O. Now, this may seem like a weird title until you realize that it is titled as a way to show people how to pronounce his name, because he was getting mad about his name being mispronounced constantly. And that just shows how shallow the persona here really is, because that was a move that was necessary to attempt to revitalize interest and intrigue within the Taio Cruz brand. Because, I mean, you see it, you say Taio, like, you wouldn't guess what the hell it was if you didn't know how to pronounce it. You wouldn't. And that's why that needed to exist. And the fact it needed to exist is a detriment to its existence. It's an Ouroboros of uninteresting terribleness.
I mean, I'm already falling asleep just thinking about it. But also, like, it's so self-defeating, because like you're trying to reinforce your brand by essentially changing the spelling of your name. So you're trying to reinforce your brand by changing your brand. That one wasn't really thought through very well. He should have just like he should have released his third album and just released it under the name the guy who did Dynamite. That literally just
that literally would have done so well. Speaking of Dynamite, let's talk about Higher, the last single. And that's enough discussion of Higher. So now we can move on to Dynamite.
Can we still dwell on the fact that this song has one of my favorite things in the world, where it's just like, now I know how to get down on the floor. Experience the moves you can't ignore. Every single time. But something about this beat that's got me hooked. Come over here and take a closer look. Can you fucking guess what the next word he says is? It is and it is like like the delivery of with this is so like it either feels like someone who is intentionally going for a kind of dramatic camp, or someone who just has so little idea of what they're doing musically that they have no idea that they sound fucking hilarious. This song is so funny.
Oh gosh, and I love the chorus of higher, higher, where he's got to do like, and every shitty pop song had to do that kind of like that like upward sound.
Yeah.
And of course he does it here. The same thing also happens on Dynamite, but we'll get there, believe me.
So higher is worth mentioning that this song was originally written for Kylie Minogue, specifically for her 2010 album Aphrodite, but never ended up making that record. And so it was repurposed and retooled for Taio Cruz.
How did that exchange happen? Kylie Minogue to Taio. Where did that pipeline? I'm so confused.
They're both like dance pop, sort of electro pop artists who definitely are taking from like a particular tradition of synthetic, house influenced pop music to some extent. I don't think the version on streaming has this, but I think originally this was released as a collaboration with Kylie. Or
it did originally feature Kylie Minogue on it, but
and it is absolutely
streaming has since removed her feature.
It is absolutely superior with Kylie because crucially,
no doubt it would be.
She is like singing the chorus alongside Taio, and her voice is much better equipped to sell it, because it is worth noting that Taio, as Jake is illuminated by that, even casual demonstration of some of the energy that he puts into it, he's just not equipped at all to make this work.
Yeah. And I mean, this is also an era where auto-tune is becoming an increasingly more and more prominent tool for musicians to use to really elevate their voice. And auto-tune is not inherently bad. It is a tool. No. It is a means to an end. And here it sounds like shit.
Well, in modern pop music for the last, at least 20, 25 years, like some form of automatic tuning, some form of synthetic vocal adjustment has been relatively normal. But what you got with the increasing rise of auto-tune in this particular wave of pop music was a distinct aesthetic that is where the synthetic element is ramped up. And you get this particularly kind of like, actually, I think you could probably even attribute this to Daft Punk to a certain extent, actually, where this synthetic treatment of vocals to achieve a particular kind of electrified effect became this huge aesthetic, popular aesthetic signifier of a lot of pop music. And it's admittedly not as egregious here as it is in certain other instances around this time. I mean, a lot of that early Kesha music is just absolutely lathered in it. But it definitely, you notice it particularly, and you notice how it's benefiting, particularly when the singer isn't very good. When a singer is already very good, as you might expect, you don't notice it as much.
Yeah.
But when it's someone who needs that assist as much as Taio, you get this level. And the reason why auto-tune, that particular like heavily synthetic use of it is a problem. The times when that becomes a problem is when it becomes clear how necessary it is to make the vocal work.
It's a reliance on auto-tune that's really the underlying issue here. It becomes
more and more necessary the less and less of a personality that the individual has, right? So because no one knows who Taio Cruz is, because no one knows what Taio Cruz's deal is, he's just another faceless dude doing this kind of music. The limitations in his performance style and the flaws in what he does only become more and more apparent and easier to zero in on and less forgivable for reasons we've kind of already touched on. Well, look, let's talk about Dynamite. I think this, let's make Dynamite the denouement of this conversation.
Let's get into, all right. So Dynamite, I feel like we gotta hype this song up. Mm-hmm. Everyone knows Dynamite.
It is unquestionably the biggest song on the album, and I would say also
it's the biggest song of his career. And
it is
let me tell you,
only good song on this record, and a huge deal of that
let me tell
goodness
you.
comes from the cultural cachet and its place and
Let me
time.
tell you, I will say I will dissent from you, Riley, because I think this song is terrible. This song sounds like
I mean, I
not
don't
that
even disagree, despite saying before that it's his only good song.
not that I don't think we really disagree here, but yeah, this song, it sounds terrible. It's like this unlistenable drivel. Like it feels like an auto-generated song. And that's to say I've listened to it no less than 50 times before recording this, because this song is catchy as fuck. Let's make that clear. There is a reason why this song is remembered.
Yes, and we have to talk about the genesis of this song. So it was originally, it was originally made by Dr. Luke. It was his song. He made it with Benny Blanco, again, two of the hugest producers of the time. And then the hook itself was written in part by Max Martin, who is the pop producer, essentially. If you get Max Martin to work on your song, his hit rate is like 95%. That dude just does not miss.
Like, just from the genesis of this song, there was like a non-zero chance that this was going to succeed.
And all the reasons why I think this is the most like memorable and remarkable and interesting, interesting not really the right word, but like this is the best song on this record, is because it has the most experience and like clear sonic vision behind it. Essentially, it has the best hooks, it has the best kind of musical development of any of the songs on the record. It has the most kind of like personality, although I would still say that's probably the biggest sticking point, and that again comes back to Taio. I mean,
and yeah, let's talk about that personality real quick, because Taio's personality on this song is I like women and I like parties.
I don't even know if I'm convinced that he even likes women. Like, he never refers to anyone in this song. It's just me and you and his crew.
I think one of the parts that always sticks out to me in this song is the I came here to do. Like, he does this really shitty like bass drop on his own voice. It sounds so terrible. And the auto-tune makes it worse. But it's those, like, hilarious.
Verses, and it's funny because the verses are the parts written by Taio, and they're so underwritten that they just like there's like this vague melodic idea that it just kind of like hits a brick wall and then just kind of like just hits a single beat 4 times in a row at the end of each line and just kind of manipulates it to kind of vaguely fake a melody out of it. And also, I just want to ask, my biggest question is, what do you need all that space for your hands for, Taio? Like,
he needs a lot of. That's one thing he emphasizes. And also, I think one of hands. Both my hands. One thing I also love is the fucking like weird, like, and it goes on and on and on, like. That part has always confused me because, like, what are we talking about that's just going on and on and on? The song?
It's that's a bit of a like that's like a Black Eyed Peas thing, like that they just like it is like an AI if you fed it nothing but the popular music at the time, and they were just like, oh, this is where the Black Eyed Peas song would have this little Fergie refrain here, so let's put it here. And not to mention, I feel like you should like I think we need to examine the very real possibility that Taio Cruz is in fact an android, just because if the verses are the things that he wrote, I have to question the grammatical nature of something like I hit the floor because that's my plans. Your plan was to hit the your plans was to hit the floor. Okay. All right. You're wearing all your favorite brands.
The brands line is such a weird thing because like it just establishes him as this completely vapid person. Like, this is what I care about. I like my clothes as advertisements for other clothes.
He says, I'm wearing all my favorite brands, but he needs a lot of space for his hands. So presumably no one is around to see the brands. So it only matters to him Do you understand?
He's very protective of his own clothing, particularly. He wants you to know, like, yeah, I'm wearing some hot brands. You don't get to know what they are, but I'm wearing them. Stay back.
And he wants to celebrate and live his life of vapidity. Like, that's such a deeply felt, like, I want to celebrate and live my life. Like, that's something that would be in somebody's like wedding vows or some shit. And he's over here just being like, I want to wear Nikes and Oakley sunglasses on this dance floor with everyone 5 feet away from me. Social distancing is important, kids.
I just want to say, saying the line, I want to celebrate and live my life, is like such a bizarre way of constructing a sentiment, because it's essentially the same as saying, I want to party and breathe. Like, like the second thing precludes the first thing, my dude. Like you you can't celebrate before you live your life. Like, you celebrate your life.
But he also just wants it all. But what is the all that he wants of?
He does say in the bridge, which is the most confusing part of the whole song to me, I'm going to take it all. I'm going to be the last one standing. So what's he in opposition to here? Like, what is the conflict?
This is a party song about wanting no one else at the party to be associated with you.
Well, I'm just
That's
trying to
what
understand-
Dynamite is.
I'm trying to understand the internal logic of the lyricism here. So the Dynamite metaphor, okay, I get it. He wants to blow up the club. You know, he wants to have
He wants to
incite.
blow up.
He wants to incite a
He's like-
celebration that is so massive that the club explodes. And I guess then everyone is flung into the air, and that's the higher concept, maybe.
And like, he's gonna be the last one landing. That's another thing we have to
That's
note.
such a funny line.
That's such a like, that line doesn't mean anything. Let's
Do
be
you think he
clear.
like goes to like when a plane, like when his private jet lands and it's like angled like this, he goes and runs up to the tail of the plane so that technically speaking he's the last one
Listen,
landing?
Taio
I want to
Cruz-
believe.
Taio Cruz cannot afford a private jet. He definitely rents Taylor Swift.
He absolutely can. He's worth like $10 million.
I feel like this was in a time period where people who, like, inextricably, if you were somehow famous, there was just like a private jet was just sort of like summoned into the ether for
Yeah.
you. And like, as soon as he got the chart success, it just sort of existed for Mr. Cruz. And that's where he gets the name from. Taio Cruz, cruise line.
If we're like,
Oh.
if we're to just to do a bit of a socio-political commentary here, I mean, this is happening in the midst of the recession. You're getting this
True.
particularly
There's a housing
this
bubble.
particular strand of, you know, particularly materialistic, I guess kind of fantasist music that is kind of a bit sickening in some senses, but I'm not going to go down that line.
Well, there's also the fact that he wants to blow up the club like it's Dynamite. This is a post 9/11 album after all, so that, I mean, it's tackling a very topical
and
concept
Riley-
of terrorism.
Here's another thing I'm thinking about in terms of what you say about this facile materialism, is that Taio's main demographic are those who are under 14. Like, little kids like this music. And here's how I know, because this was a song that when I was in like kindergarten, on the last day of school, they played this and we had a big dance party like it was Shrek or something. And this is what this music is for. It's for stupid people, like stupid little kids, Taio assumes, who won't like think about this lyricism. So the materialism falls flat on them, because we're also in a pre-cell phone age, before cell phones were widely available to children. So Taio really missed the mark by about 4 or 5 years here, and that's who we really should have been aiming for.
Do you understand, August, how old it makes me feel to hear that you were listening to this song in kindergarten?
I was just about to say, I was going to say my most prominent memories of this song were in the 7th and 8th grade, I think.
Oh,
And-
Jesus Christ.
And yeah, and like, a popular thing to do when you were like, I remembered like multiple children doing this, and this might be a bit of more of an insulated bubble kind of thing, just because I went to a private school in the middle of Kentucky. So, maybe this is just a bunch of hickory dickory bullshit. But the kids, like, I remember my classmates making up lyrics to this song that weren't the song.
Yes,
They were
I
talking
remember
about,
that
like, they would
too. We
substitute.
totally
and
did
this
that.
time,
I like throwing your Skittles in the air sometimes and saying,
Yeah.
"Ayo, taste
Oh,
the
and
rainbow."
this is the same thing
Y'all
that
remember
happened
this
with like
shit?
Yeah, that
this
was an
same
early
thing
meme.
happened with like R. Kelly's "I Believe I Can Fly," where you just did like
Yeah.
really immature parodies
Yeah.
of it, like "I Believe I Can Die,"
Yeah,
"I Believe I Can."
Yeah.
Like it's
yeah.
that same
Exactly.
demographic because it's got this same level of like imprintable just blandness on it, where it doesn't quite.
This song
mean
is made for
anything.
kids who watched like Smosh.
it's not
Oh,
even like
absolutely.
it's. I don't even think
You
it's
know what I
just
mean?
the
Yes.
blandness. It's the sense of like dramatics that the more dramatic and the more bland the song is together, the
Yeah.
more it becomes like fodder for that kind of meme.
Yeah.
So a song where it's
Yeah,
like
there you
melodrama meets blandness at the perfect intersection, then you're going to have like 13-year-old kids making up
and
lyrics.
lyrics that are so simple they become mimetic.
Yeah.
So that you can, like, it doesn't matter that the lyrics don't make sense. What makes sense is that a bunch of kids can take this and make a bunch of lyrics that rhyme with it and sound stupid.
It's like
And-
I
and
can't.
they'll-
always
yeah,
give
they
a-
giggle on the playground, and it's fun.
I always have a wee laugh when I listen to the song, and like he says, "Because I told you once, now I told you twice."
And he has not yet
It's
told
like
you
every
twice.
line on this is a filler line, like that you just leave in there one to write a better lyric.
It's oh yeah, like, and that's got to be something he wrote, because that doesn't make a goddamn lick of sense, and it follows our pre-established theme of Taio repeating himself ad nauseum.
Mm,
Do you guys think that Bob Dylan has heard this song?
I hope
yes,
so.
absolutely.
I wonder what
I-
he thinks. I just think about that sometimes, that we have like 70-year-old artists who were once classic songwriters. Like Joni Mitchell's still alive. You think Joni Mitchell has been in like a Walmart and heard Dynamite on the loudspeakers? It's like,
Yeah.
oh, this is a bop.
I imagine Bob Dylan's reaction to this song is like the Joker and the Fool gave the Queen a lick for his money, and that means he thinks it sucks.
He makes his own lyrics to the song, like the kids with the Skittles did
And
on the
now
playground.
I told the
Told you
jester
once, I told you twice.
we gonna light it up like it's the French Revolution in 1983.
I was gonna say the Kennedy assassination.
The Kennedy
That also
assassination.
works.
So worth noting as well, this song lyrically was co-written by Bonnie McKee, who is a very prolific ghostwriter and
Say
pop
Bonnie
music.
Prince Billy.
Bonnie
That,
McKee is a very prolific ghostwriter. She wrote or co-wrote basically every Katy Perry hit from 2010 to 2013.
That makes a lot of sense.
And so this has the same kind of like sense of trashy sensibility. I mean, she's the other artist that kind of really indulged in this trashiness in that particular era that, well, she always had this kind of like sense which she was able to rise above it, but it also at the same time be incredibly provocative.
It's why I respect Kesha more than Katy Perry, because Kesha always feels like there was a degree to which someone was in on the bit. Whereas Katy Perry, it was always just kind of like,
and also like,
I don't know about this.
Once Kesha went off on her own and got a new record deal and all that, she actually showcased diversity in her subsequent music. Like I still listen to Rainbow or songs off of that every now and then. That's a really, really good album.
Praying is one of the best pop songs of the 2010s, frankly.
Yeah. Anyway,
So,
one last thing I
yeah.
want to talk about on the note of Dynamite. I mean, something I don't know how we haven't made a big deal out of this yet, but essentially, like,
oh boy,
what Taio is doing, Taio and Bonnie together, and they should be held accountable, is they are essentially advocating for a terror attack. And I don't feel that we have.
I mean, I mentioned this.
You did mention it, but I don't feel like we have properly underlined that. What this song ultimately is a song about a terror attack.
you piece of shit. You can't even honor the dead, and you can't even respect the great tragedy that is 9/11. I am disgusted. I am going up to my uncle's house, and we will be having 2 large red hot dogs with a lot of relish on them to commemorate the thousands who died in 9/11.
Anyway, are there by any chance, August, I guess this is really just a question for you, but Jake as well, any deep cuts on this album that you want to bring up or talk about? Or
Are there any,
anyway?
I guess the first thing I should ask, are there any deep cuts anyone remembers?
I think of their lyrics on I Can Be, they're really stuck with me, like it starts off with, now I feel that this hold of mine has taken many forms, already getting really dense with the prose here, and then follows it up with still sometimes the rain can turn into a waterfall. Now what? Also, the prettiest things can come out of the coldest mind. Truly a reincorporation of the themes we saw on Break Your Heart.
Yeah.
And even with broken wings, sometimes you can find your way to fly. Now, I get the sentiment of this, but also that's not how that works. If your wings are broken, you're gonna die.
Well,
man.
R. Kelly believed he could fly.
And
He got shot by the FBI.
The best part about this, though, is the real inspirational tone to the chorus, which is, it's time to be bigger, stronger, harder. And he's singing it so impassionately. He's like, it's time to be bigger, stronger. Like, this is a ballad, damn it, about how he is hard.
I like how broken the English is in this song, in lines like, now I feel that this soul of mine has had its many tolls. So still sometimes
I'm not giving Taio poetic license here.
Still sometimes this pain is what we need for us to grow. So when it's time for me to look into my deeper side, I will find a way to hold on to the love inside. Just to wrap this up, do you guys remember any of Taio's subsequent hits on his follow-up album, like Hangover and Troublemaker?
God, no.
Oh,
I remember those songs, particularly Hangover as well. That's like,
that's got
never even
Flow
heard of
Rider
it.
on it.
You've never heard a note of that song, Jake? I want you to guess. I want you to just guess how the chorus to that song goes. Don't overthink this
song.
Just say, how does the chorus of the song Hangover go?
I've got a hangover.
That's exactly right. That is the whole chorus is exactly what you just said, and you almost got the tone of how he says it as well. It's amazing. So that's all we
naturally.
Taio Cruz. I got a hangover. Whoa! I've been drinking too much for sure. I've got a hangover. Whoa! I got an empty cup. Pour me some more, so I can go until I blow up. And I can drink until I throw up, and I don't ever want to grow up. I want to keep it going, keep it going. I got a little bit trash last night. I got a little bit wasted.
I can't stop partying.
I got a little bit mashed last night. I got a little bit shit-faced. I'm not joking. He says shit-faced as the rhyme with wasted. And it's like
some lyrical miracle
it's
shit.
spelled out on the lyrics page like shit faceted, like this is how it's written.
The shit faceted.
He says, obviously he says shit faced. It's amazing.
I would love to hear Taio Cruz say a word like Schadenfreude. Like, I just want that to exist because I think that would be funny fundamentally.
Schadenfreude. That's his new single.
Look, I want to just read you.
Maybe that's Taio's comeback song.
Here's a comment from the Genius page. Hangover, the international lead single of Taio Cruz's third album, Taio, is one of the artist's most played songs. But ironically, it is evident.
Is it now?
Ironically, it is evident that Flow Rider's clever flowing lyricism overshadows Taio's repetitiveness throughout this party anthem. And I just want to read you what Flo Rida's verse says.
Let's
Drink-
hear it. I'm
Drink
so
up,
excited.
because a party ain't a party till you ride out through it. End up on the floor but can't remember. You clueless. Officer like, what the hell is you doing? Stumbling, fumbling, you want to what? Come again? Give me hen, give me gin, give me liquor, give me champagne bubbles till I'm bent. What happens after that? If you inspired, then tell a friend. Like, oh, my homie Taio, we can all sip again. Get it in and again and again. Leave evidence. Wasted, so what? Irrelevant. Beer keg to the head. Who's selling it? I got a hangover. That's my medicine.
There's a lot happening here.
Don't mean to brag or sound too intelligent. A little Jack can't hurt this veteran. I show up, but I never. Just so much happening in this verse.
His clever real lyricism overshadows Taio's repetitive verse, truly.
I like the vague allusions to violence in this verse, like leaving evidence.
Smashing him with a keg.
A beer keg to the head. Like, that's not what you're supposed to do. I love that he refers to himself as a veteran as well, but also in the context of the fact that because he's a veteran, Jack Daniels can't hurt him. I don't know what that...
Thank you for your service, Mr. Flo Rida.
I saw when you arrived looking like a supermodel. Your ass from the side looks like a Coke bottle.
What?
I love the way you ride, put that thing on full throttle. So get up on the saddle.
What thing?
I want to see you moving.
I think the ass is what is being referred to.
I want to see you moving.
That sounds disgusting.
Put your ass on full throttle.
I want to see you moving like they're moving in Jamaica. Wait for it. Pretend that I'm a dinner. She can be my salt shaker. Sexy little mama, it's really nice to meet you. Can I be in your classroom and be your private teacher? If I bring out my camera, will you be in my feature? Because we gonna do some things. Hope your daddy ain't a preacher.
Like,
Nope.
none of that story, first off, makes any sense. But
Yeah,
that's kind of beyond.
I'm
point.
delighted that,
Like,
that neither of
no-
you remember the song.
Yeah, no, like, so he goes into the classroom, but now he's the teacher, even though
Yeah,
he's going into
she's
her
she's the
classroom.
troublemaker. She is the naughty student who needs to be set straight. That's the bit.
Okay,
Uh,
that's
it's only
he
it's
just
only
he just worded it in a way that was like completely backwards and antithetical to the point.
it's only
where
it's
he-
only a little
yeah.
bit pedophilic. It's fine.
Now, the thing is, I've kept a secret from you two
Oh, no.
about this
Oh,
song.
no. Which song?
Dynamite.
Dynamite. Okay.
Dynamite is my Joker origin story. And here's how. So you'll remember the kindergarten dance party that I established earlier in this episode as being something we did. See, this is reincorporation, kids, basic film theory. Don't go to film school. It's a waste of money. Anyways, I was but a wee child and I liked Dynamite. My parents can attest to this. I listened to it all the time and they were greatly annoyed by it. And, I was like, yeah, this is kind of a cool, fun song, whatever. I was a dumb kid. I didn't really have any taste in anything. But then the end of the year dance party came around and the whole elementary school gathered in the gymnasium. And then we started playing the loudspeaker. And we went through song after song, pop hit from the year 2009, 2010, whatever decade ago this was. And it was all fine until we got to the last song. And the last song for the agenda that night was Dynamite. And something in me snapped. When I saw all those people dancing to this song, I had a realization. I remembered something that a friend of mine, a brother of a friend rather, had told me, that this song Dynamite, it's just the trash. It's just the popular garbage. And I had dismissed that, but then I saw that auditorium full of people. I saw them all dancing. And you know what I did? I sat down. I sat down for the duration of Dynamite, even when my kindergarten teacher gestured her hand so politely to make a young August feel included. I batted it away because at that moment, I realized that I couldn't take it. I couldn't stand it. I hated this song. I realized this was vapid shit. This was trash for the masses. Taio Cruz, you are nothing. Your songs mean nothing. Your music is vapid, and that is why you won't be remembered. This song is garbage. It is shit. This album fucking sucks. This song fucking broke me. This song literally fucking broke me. So this was years coming, Taio. This was 12 years Count of Monte Cristo ass planning to take you down. And you know what? Yeah, I'm rocking you. I am fucking rocking you. And you know what? I don't even need to throw a hand up in the air. I can just throw up one finger. Dynamite is the origin of my persona on this podcast. This is a kind of realization, a completion. Dynamite is me. I am Dynamite. I'm transcending. I'm becoming something greater than this podcast. I'm gonna come myself. I didn't actually. Anyway, let's favorite tracks and ratings. Jake.
Well, here's the thing about this album is that we kind of got up in the minutiae of discussing these songs individually. Overall, this is one of the worst albums I think I've ever listened to for this podcast. I mean, in all sincerity, it just has like I don't have a compliment to give it. Like I can say that it's short. It doesn't last a long time, so that's why I can't say it's the absolute worst thing. But it's just like, hey, do you like feeling like a sex offender for 40 minutes by listening to some of the worst sounding music that's ever been made? It's bad. I don't really have three favorite. I mean, the three best tracks on here are probably Break Your Heart, Dynamite, and the fucking Higher, I guess, because it's not Dirty Picture. Least favorite song, I don't know, fucking all of them. Who cares? 1.5.
Favorites, it's going to be have to be much of the same as Jake. I would agree completely. It's Dynamite, just for being by virtue of being the most memorable. Higher because it's kind of funny, and fucking ludicrous. Whatever. Least favorite is also Dynamite for reasons I've detailed. I'll give it a 2.
My favorite track is Max Martin. My least favorite track is Taio Cruz. 1.5.
Damn.
Which means we get an average of 1.7 for Taio Cruz's Rokstarr. Let us know at home what this album means to you. What are your favorite songs? What is your relationship with the music of Taio Cruz? What memories do you hold of experiencing Taio's art in your own life? And what did you think of our conversation of the music of Taio Cruz? Taio Cruz, Taio Cruz, Taio Cruz, Taio Cruz. If you enjoyed the video, Taio Cruz, the button. If you want to go above and beyond and Taio Cruz us, you can hit the Taio Cruz. And for just Taio Cruz a month, you can become a part of the Taio Cruz family and get your name featured in the Taio Cruz of every Taio Cruz on this Taio Cruz. Plus, if you want to recommend us a Taio Cruz to listen to, your Taio Cruz will go to the top of the Taio Cruz.
As always, folks, brand, slogan,